Hi everyone, I'm Courtney, and this video is to help you learn English. In a moment, I'm going to talk at a pace that's close to native speed. I am going to tell a story. I'm going to tell a story about how learning Spanish has impacted the way that I see my own native language. If the level is too hard or the level is too fast, don't worry. There's a lot of other videos on my channel where I talk at a pace like this. So you can find that playlist on my YouTube channel. Okay, ready for the story? I started learning Spanish about a year ago. And something really interesting has happened to my perspective on my own native language. In the past, I would get frustrated. I would get frustrated when people in my own native language used words that to me sounded weird or overly formal. And I would get a little bit frustrated when people wanted me to speak in a certain way that didn't feel authentic and true to myself. But something interesting that has happened since I've started learning Spanish is I think that I've learned the importance of adjusting your speech to whoever you're talking to. I used to see this concept as something annoying. Why can't I just be myself? Why can't I just talk the way that I want to talk? In Spanish, as I learned, I realized that there are different types of Spanish. There are different types of people speaking the Spanish. There are different countries that speak Spanish. And there are different ages of people. There are different genders of people. And depending on who you're speaking to, you speak differently. And as I've been learning Spanish, that's been a concept that's been easy for me. Sure, actually implementing what I've learned is hard because I have to remember what form of you to use, or if I say la or el, or add an a or an o on the end of the word. But that's not really what I mean. Implementing it is the hard part, but accepting it into my heart as something that I'm doing just to be able to communicate better and connect better with the person that I'm talking to has been easy for me. And I was reflecting on why. I think when you're learning a new language, you feel like a baby. You feel out of place, and hopefully you want to be respectful of the culture that's involved with that language. And so I think when you're learning a language, it's better to err on the side of politeness and maybe hide a little bit of your personality or a little bit of the more outlandish things that you would say in English. Not crazy things, not inappropriate things, not things that you wouldn't say in your own native language, but I just mean that you adjust your speech and you make sure that you don't say things that are above your level of understanding, right? Because you could get yourself into trouble if you try to speak above your level of knowledge. And also, if you're not aware of cultural standards and what is the norm, you don't want to offend anyone, right? I think something that happened to me in the past in English is there would be situations where I didn't feel the need to modify my speech for whoever I was speaking to. And then I would feel frustrated that they weren't connecting with me in the way that I felt like they should be. I thought that the problem was them and not me. And now, through learning Spanish, I'm seeing that it's a little bit of both. The whole point of talking to another person is to connect with them. And so, modifying your speech, even in small ways, can be a really powerful way to increase that level of connection. I'm going to give some concrete examples because I've been talking in kind of an abstract way. One example of something that I would get frustrated with in the past is speaking at work. There's a certain way of speaking at work, which in English we call corporate or business speak. And I'm not good at speaking in this type of way. Corporate or business speak is very formal. And I'm not usually a person that's a very formal person in the way that I speak. And so in the past, I would get frustrated and I would get mad. Why do I have to use these fancy words, these formal words to get my point across? And now that I've learned Spanish a bit and had some experience learning a language, I'm realizing that learning to speak corporate or business speak is a lot easier than learning to speak an entire another language, but it's its own mini language. It's its own subcategory of my own native language. And instead of getting mad or frustrated that I can't connect with these people, it's simply my duty and my obligation to learn how to speak their language a little bit if I want to connect. And that doesn't mean that I'm not being authentic to myself, because being authentic to myself is about connection with people. That's very authentic to myself, is connection with people. And I understand it's a two-way street. So two-way street in English means effort from both people, a two-way street. If you're driving down a road and the road is only one way, there's only one person going one way. But if you're driving down a two-way street, there's effort from both people and they're meeting in the middle. It's a metaphor. I understand that it's a two-way street, but I need to do my part to learn the language of corporate speak or business speak. Another example that I have is growing up, my dad would hate when I would call him dude. I would be like, "Hey, dude," and he would get really mad. He was like, "Don't call me that. I don't like that word." And I never understood. I never understood why he didn't like that word. Because for me, and for a lot of people my age, dude is just a word that we use to address people. Like, it's a term. It's a kind of a sort of pronoun, I guess. Like, "Hey, dude, how's it going?" But my dad hated it, and he still hates it to this day. And growing up, I always thought that it was dumb that I couldn't use this word. Which is really interesting because in the past, when I was younger, I always felt like this was stupid. I should be able to use the word dude. What's the problem? And through learning Spanish, I've realized it's just kind of about a matter of respect, right? So in Spanish, if you're talking to your grandma or a person of respect, you're not going to use tú. In some places, you will. Maybe. I'm not sure. I'm still struggling a little bit. But the fact of the matter, the point, is that you're going to use a word with more respect. And in Spanish, that's probably usted. And so, essentially, what I was doing to my dad is I was using the word tú in English to my dad. And he didn't like it. And to me, I didn't understand that that was what was happening, but it was about a lack of respect. And I thought that the word was respectful, but when you're talking to someone else, it's always about deferring, or usually about deferring to what feels respectful for them, right? And you can see that with different communities of people as well. One example is the LGBTQ plus community and the word queer in English, right? So in the past, the word queer was a derogatory word, and now, depending on who you ask, the word queer is a very accepted word, and it's been reclaimed by the LGBTQ plus community, at least in my experience from my friends. And so, yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say with all of this is that learning another language has made me realize the ways that I can improve my communication and my respect for the differences in the way that people speak, even in my own native language. And I truly think that the purpose of life is to connect with people and to make people feel loved and cared about and included. And so I'm really, really appreciative that this experience of learning another language has helped me in my own language. And right now, in my day-to-day, English is the language that I speak 95% of the time, probably more. And so it's been a cool lesson to learn. I know that there will be many more lessons that come along with learning a new language, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. What lessons have you learned by learning a new language? I don't mean the language itself. What have you learned outside of the language about the people associated with the language you're learning? That was really long. Let me say it in a shorter way. What has language learning taught you besides the language? I would love to know in the comments. So write a comment down below. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you like this video, there are more videos just like this on EnglishSponge.com. I'm Courtney. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Bye.